There's a very long tradition of the Western Balkans being part of Europe and being part of European wider society. There's economic relations increasingly, and then of course there's geostrategic interests to make sure that this part of Europe is not left out from the European Union. The Balkans are very much a crossroads and where they are positioned in the continent, so and also you want to avoid having a gap in the European constellation in the middle, that you have somehow a void where those countries would not be participating in European decision making and European cooperation. And also the positioning between the Mediterranean, or more the Adriatic and the Black Sea, gives it a privileged position, connecting the Greece all the way up through the Balkans. So it's very much a crossroads historically and still today of cultures, people and economies. Being part of the EU is being part of a large organization, a global influential community of countries. Of course, it's a big market, so in terms of economic opportunities, it's significant. There is obviously the funding that comes with the EU in terms of agricultural funding and regional development funding. Once you have joined, that really can change countries profoundly. But I think also it's the historical belonging in this case, that staying part of where the Balkans has been in the past and then be again very much part of this, that is in this case so important for people. We may see that the EU will need a little bit of time to re-engage and kind of join forces again. At the same time, the work in preparing the countries to join the European Union and technical preparations and negotiations are very much going on. So this is perhaps less visible for the public and less discussed in the media, but there is a lot of work going on despite let's say the overall challenge of managing an orderly Brexit. The conflict is fairly recent. So the last conflict, the Kosovo conflict, is 20 years ago now. So this, if we look historically around the world, to recover from such division and also the physical reconstruction takes a lot of time. Now, in terms of challenges of each country takes its own path, but of course there is a strong prerogative to join the European Union. Public opinion in the Western Balkans remains largely committed to it. Political parties in the Balkans are also very much committed to joining the European Union. So there is, on the one hand, preparing legally to adopt all the EU legislation, the so-called acquis communautaire, but then there's also underlying reforms in society and policy reforms that, as international community, we encourage the governments and their societies to engage, and they go from modernizing the economy and then also a number of more longer-term reforms on sustainable development. For the Balkans specifically, we know that there is a number of areas of work to improve where we can invest together, including on climate change, disaster prevention, which are perhaps less prominent in the actual negotiations, but create solid, stable environments for people to live and work. There's a number of stages that countries go to. It goes from applying for membership to becoming a member. And then there's different steps that you go through and you get validated. So what was in the strategy that was presented by the Commission in 2018 is that it could be that Serbia and Montenegro would be ready to join the EU in 2025. They're already negotiating at the moment, so the negotiations are per chapter, so they're opening chapters and they're closing chapters and they're moving steadily in that process. Albania and North Macedonia are accession countries, which means that they have submitted an application, the application has been received, and the Commission is in the process of talking to these countries. They have not yet opened negotiations. That might be the case this year, but that's a political decision that's taken at the level of the member states. Bosnia has applied for membership and has completed the first step, which is answering a long list of questions on preparedness in terms of legislation. They call it the so-called questionnaire. And that just recently, the last batch of answers was supplied to the European Commission. So the Commission will now study and assess the level of preparedness. The one that is most behind would be Kosovo, because it has not yet applied for membership to the European Union. So obviously the timelines are quite different. And it's a long process, it's a very deep process of many reforms that change countries profoundly.